Welcome to the Eat, Slay, Live podcast.
And we are the Loxecutioners. We're going to be eating lightning and talking thunder and power bombing you right in the ear holes today.
We back again.
We back after another little podcast.
Back again.
Yeah. So one, you were late.
Well, I was actually here on time.
Well, kind of. And come rolling in here drinking a Red Bull.
Well, normally, I roll in with my coffee. I had an unexpected guest today that I had to give a tour to.
Okay.
And I started to sweat a little bit. I'm like, okay, there's a lot of talking going on. And normally I come down here with my coffee, but I had to skip the coffee. Red Bull. I hate drinking a Red Bull.
Yeah.
But
well, if you start having some sort of seizure or anything over there, let us know. All right.
I got about half of it down. I think I'm good. Good with it.
Yeah. Anything new going on with you?
Oh, man, nothing.
No?
Nothing good. Nothing new.
Nothing good?
Nothing good.
You're always up to the bad.
Life is good. Nothing new, though. We're just grinding.
Yeah.
Grinding through these summer months.
I don't even know what that means. You're getting ready to have a birthday soon.
Ooh, about to turn 40.
40? How can we both be 40? That's weird.
Crazy.
That is weird, right? Being brothers and both of us being 40. That's weird, right?
How does that work, Doc?
That was a while ago for me, so I won't say.
Well, we'll go right into introducing our guests. Today on here, we have Dr. Geoffrey Turner. He is an OBGYN, gynecologist, if you will. I'm going to read a little something that someone sent in about him, Ross, okay?
Right off the bat, coming hot.
That's how we like to do it around here, This is someone, so I'll just go right into it. I've been a nurse for 30 years now, and to this day have not encountered a physician that has the rare talent of being both a highly skilled / educated surgeon who trained at a prestigious institution, Duke University, Ross,
Go Blue Devils.
Blue Devils, which is incredibly hard to be accepted to, who also can educate and relate to a patient who has lower in education and get them to understand their condition in a simple way. He truly is empathetic and kind to everyone he meets and always makes them laugh and feel comfortable, even though with his background he could legitimately categorized as a highbrow, smarty pants kind of physician. He doesn't throw that vibe out to anyone. It's very hard to find that humbleness in a physician. He's also a baddie out there flipping Big Bertha 11 times in 30 seconds in the middle of circuit. So that's one of his nurses wrote that. It's pretty good, Ross.
That's pretty good. People aren't saying that shit about Todd.
Well, there's not a waitress in the brick house that would even give 1/8 of that about you.
That's for sure. I know it though. Todd doesn't.
Anyway, Dr. T, we call him Dr. T, Ross. That's what he's known around the Thunderdome.
We got Uncle T and Dr. T in here today.
He's got his Knuckles shirt on. Show our millions of fans the shirt there. Yeah.
Power to Knuckles.
Yes. So anyway, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Ross, do you think he's not on Facebook, but I think he's one of those that creeps on his wife's Facebook a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Not too much.
Not too much. What do you think, Ross? You think he's ever heard one of our Eat, Slay, Live shows?
No.
I have.
You have? Who have you heard?
Well, once you told me that I could be on the show, I have a 26-year-old son who does other podcasts, and so he helped me look one up.
Did you hear? He said once you said I could do your podcast. I asked him, but I like how he said I could, like it was a privilege.
Oh, it feels like it.
Well, when you look around the studio, it does feel like it. But once you start talking to us, you'll quickly lose that feeling.
I don't think so.
Anyway, welcome to the show. We're super excited to have you. I've known you now about 8 years.
That's right.
Yeah, he's one of the biggest proponents of Pride. That's why I had him on, Ross. Here's one. You think he's ever been to the Brick House?
Yes.
I have.
Yeah, look at that.
Let's go, Doc.
3 for 3. Listen to the show. Been to Pride. Been to the Brick House.
That's right.
I like that. Well, welcome to the show. We're just going to start out right from the very beginning. Where are you from, Doc? Where are you from?
Born and raised Omaha, Nebraska.
Actually, I had a question I wanted to ask really quick before we got to. Where do babies come from?
Well,
We'll get to
I know you don't have any kids, but I will, if you want a diagram later, I'll give you a
Educate
diagram.
Todd, please. We got a whitebboard up there. You can draw it up, make it nice
You
and
got kids?
simple. Yeah.
All right, so you haven't asked him
What's that?
where they come from. He can help you out.
He's just gotten lucky, probably. Yeah, I've
least
said him.
once.
So I'm sorry. Where are you from, Doc?
Originally from Omaha, Nebraska.
Omaha, Nebraska.
So I was the short, fat kid that got beat up every day of grade school. Probably by like tough guys like you.
Well, but did you point at both of us? So where did you go to high school in Omaha?
So the name of the high school was Millard North, and so I laughed that I'm always one of those big advocates for the geeks shall inherit the earth, because if you look at my 7th grade class picture, I got the white tape holding the glasses together right here.
Literally have the white tape.
So the true story goes. Start of 8th grade, 5'2", 165 pounds, cystic acne, shower every 3rd day, whether I need to or not. Got the glasses with the white tape holding them together. And so I spent most of grade school getting beat up because I was a academic snob by the time I was in 3rd grade.
So you right away, like you were excelling in school.
Yeah, but the sad part was I knew it and I let people know it. And so one of the
I would too.
One of the classic moments was one of those standardized math tests, I think in 3rd grade, where you weren't even expected to finish. So they handed out the test, and so I was hauling ass through the test, and the minute I was done, I picked it up in the air, walked up to the front desk, dropped the mic on the teacher's thing, and went back, sat with my arms crossed. I got the crap beat out of me on the way home by all
You
the...
think you are.
That's right. So I got tied up in a sewer that time by my shoelaces. So maybe I deserve some of that. But so start 8th grade, 5'2", 165. Okay, but now in at least junior high in Nebraska, 7th and 8th grade, you get separated out a little bit from the people who are always beating you up. And so I was the president of Dungeons and Dragons and the future problem solver.
Did you put that on your resume, president of Dungeons and Dragons?
It's totally there. And so for the 8th grade school picture, I'm sitting in the gym waiting for my chance to get my picture taken, and one of the popular guys came up and beamed me in the head with a basketball right on the stem, and it broke my glasses in half. And so I went to my locker, got some white tape, put it on, went back. I go get my picture taken. The guy looks at me and goes, "You really want to get your picture taken like that?" I'm like, "It's fine, whatever." So they take my picture, and so I went home. I had a whole bunch of glasses because they were always getting broken. And when the school pictures came out, my mom saw the picture of me with the white tape. She about had a shit fit. And so she called the school, and we went and had pictures retaken at Sears. So in the 8th grade yearbook, everybody has a gray background except for me, who has a blue background, because they vetoed my glasses picture. So there's only 2 copies of that left in existence that I know of.
Yeah.
I not only is it a funny story, but I'm also raging a little bit. I want to beat up some fucking bullies.
Yeah, I know. It makes me want to roll into a bully session a little bit.
The story does have a cool end. Well, the story has a continuation. Let's go with that, because this will help your raging right here. So in between 8th and 9th grade, I grew 10 inches.
What?
Okay. Damn. Got contacts, tan, was on Accutane for my acne. Okay. So I come back from a lake.
10 inches in like a year and a half?
About a year.
A year.
I was in a lake, water skiing and swimming, or the doctor said I might have broke a bone because I grew so fast. So 9th grade starts. I'm 6 foot tall, 165 pounds. I got contacts. I got a tan. And
who's the new kid in our school?
The guys I had played Dungeons and Dragons with were actually came up.
They started bullying you?
No, they didn't know. They didn't know who we were registering for class.
Yeah.
And I was standing there with my best friend, and 3 other guys of my best friend group came up and said to him, "Brian, who's your friend?" Didn't know who the hell I was. Wow. And Brian, my best friend, goes, "Dude, you got new packaging," is what he said.
New packaging.
But I was the same person, okay? And so go off to school. And now, of course, in high school, I'm really far away. All the guys who've been beaten up are in remedial algebra, and I'm off, with the juniors taking, whatever. And so the high school science teacher, what else does he do at a big high school, public high school? He coaches the freshman football team. And so he comes up to me and says, "Dude, can you come out for football? Because I need some 6 foot tall."
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go to the locker room with all the people who beat me up. I said,
right.
I don't think so. And then he said, "You know what? If you come out for football I will let you be the senior biology lab tech.
And
I'm like, ooh, if you're going to bribe a dork, you got to know how to bribe him.
Right.
So I said, fine, but I'm not going to the locker room. You bring me the pads, and I'm going to change in the hall bathroom. And so I changed in the hall bathroom. They go out. This is Nebraska, so football is pretty big.
And with your shoulder pads on at 6 foot tall, you look huge.
Right, as a freshman.
Yeah.
And so I go out, and they're going to put me as a tight end because they don't know what else to do with me. And so I go out for a pass. Quarterback throws it over my head. It bounces out onto the track. I'm like, well, this is stupid. And so I go walk out, and I pick up the ball, and the coach is waving for me to hustle back, but I got like no hustle. So I threw him the ball from 50 yards and hit him in the chest. By the end of the week, I was the starting quarterback and captain of the football team.
Wow.
damn.
Two of the guys who used to beat me up were offensive linemen who didn't know who I was. And so I still got beat up because of them because they were terrible. So one time they were beating me up, and then the next time that I was getting beat up because they couldn't do their job. When we were seniors in high school, I told them who I was, and by that point, one was like a convicted felon and didn't care. But so it was what comes around goes around.
Yeah. Now, what did your parents do?
So my mom's.
Oh, that was a good fucking story, dude.
I'm not trying to gloss over it. I feel like he's got a lot of those to come.
It's an endless well. You don't even know what you have opened. So my mom.
That was like one of those 80s like redemption movies. Like I don't remember like Lucas or something like that.
Well, it didn't always work out. There was I remember when I was in chemistry, because I had a mask on my face mask. And so a lot of people, it was an urban myth that the quarterback for our football team didn't even go to our high school because I was a dork. So after the football game, I would go home and play Atari or whatever with the friends. I was never at a party.
Right.
And so the question was, where the hell's our quarterback? He's never anywhere. And so one time we had a new girl come in, and it was in our like AP chemistry class or whatever. And I was like trying to make some time. And so I
Make some time.
And so I said to her, well, she was in the band, and she goes, well, this Friday, if you want to come sit with me, I'm in the band. And I go, well, I can't because I'm actually the quarterback. And she goes, you could have just said you didn't want to sit by me because she didn't believe me and just like totally blew. I never talked to her again. So,
How tall are you now?
what? 6'2". So I was.
Were you 6'2" by the time you were senior?
6'3". Yeah, I think I've shrunk a little since senior, but that was 3-4 decades ago. So yeah, I could dunk a basketball up all the way through medical school. So
Wow.
But
Ross, did you ever dunk?
Absolutely.
So.
Okay.
But my parents, my dad worked for the Union Pacific in Omaha, and my mom was 5th grade school teacher. They got divorced when I was like 8, so really I give my mom all the credit because she raised me and my sister sort of by ourselves. We were latchkey kids with the key to when you get off the bus from school and go and let yourself in.
Right.
So it was, like I said, she still lives in Houston. Dad passed away a few years ago from Parkinson's disease, but they had like an amicable divorce. They never like, most people who have met both of them were like, why were they ever married? So, but that's sort of that story. So it was typical like lower middle class upbringing kind of thing.
How big was the town up there in Nebraska?
Well, Omaha is like,
so you were in Omaha, in the city of.
Yeah. We were just west of Boys Town, so we were like sort of in a suburb kind of thing. If you go back to Omaha now, it's like where I lived is 5 miles into city limits because it's grown so much. Omaha's a lot like St. Louis in that the downtown is based on a river, and then the farther west you go, the bigger the suburbs get. Instead of the Mississippi for St. Louis, it's the Missouri for Omaha. But otherwise, they're very similar kind of looking cities.
I gotcha. Did you play basketball also?
Just I did, but not very well. Let's go with that. So.
Yeah. Did you have a good enough high school career that you could have played in college football?
I don't think so. I went to TCU, so Texas Christian University in Fort Worth, and
Probably couldn't have played there.
no, I did. I did. They were terrible when I was there. I did take a co-ed flag football team to the national championships at the Sugar Bowl.
Wow.
So that
in there for sure.
Hey, put that right below Dungeons and Dragons president on your resume.
It's a wide and varied resume.
I guess so. So going to TCU. So did you get a scholarship? It sounds like your academic achievements were pretty high enough that you probably did.
I went to Harvard in between my junior and senior year of high school, and was going to go there. But my dad got a golden parachute. Union Pacific merged with Southern Pacific, and so he didn't have a job. And so he said, I can only afford for you to go to Harvard a year or two. You might have to come back and finish at University of Nebraska, Omaha, if I don't get a new job. Or you can go and look at TCU that's offered you a full scholarship. And so you're supposed to go down for this honors weekend. I'm like, all right, well, I'll go look at it. I had no idea what TCU was. I knew they had a pretty good pre-med program. And so I went down for this honors weekend, and it was like that was before the drinking age was 21 in Texas, and it was I don't know that I even unpacked my bag for 2 days. It was just a party of tanning and like drinking. I don't know what kind of honors weekend that was, but I came home and he's like, so what do you think? You want to go maybe Harvard, or are you going to want to go back to TCU? I'm like, TCU sounds good.
Did your dad make a phone call down there before? Set some shit up?
I don't know what. I know, like I said, they had offered me that. I don't know what happened there, but that would have
make sure my boy has a good time.
My dad would go up several notches in some people's view if he was smart enough to look at that move, but I don't know. So that was what made me go to TCU, and it was a great time and very lucky because that's where I met my wife. So
when he's out at Pride, do you athletic?
What's that?
Would you think he was a starting quarterback for 4 years?
I don't know, but he's a grinder. You know what I'm saying? Like the person who sent this in talked about him flipping our big tire 11 times in 30 seconds. Like there's no one that does more than that. There's nobody. I mean, there might be someone who could do it that many times, maybe.
If they wanted to.
Well, one, nobody wants to.
That's for
and
sure.
two, there might be someone who comes here who could do it that many times, but there's no one who does it more, who could do it more. You know what I'm saying? It was funny that we're getting on that tire. He was here the other day, and there was a high school kid, Alton wrestler. I think, is he a junior? I can't remember if he's a sophomore or
he's
junior.
15 or 16, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but he thinks he's the cock of the walk. You know what I'm saying? He struts around. He's a tough little wrestler.
Yeah.
And so they were paired. Were you paired up or just by you?
He was the second person of his group following his mom, and because he was trying to lose weight to make weight.
Yeah.
And so he was the person in front of me.
Now, he's not a big guy, but he could be your grandchild.
You're correct.
You know? And so I said something about, you're gonna beat that old man, aren't you, on the tire for that old man? He got wrinkled balls. You got to beat him. And so, how did you get 10 or 11?
Well, he went first, and so as he was because he was doing push-ups, just throwing the push-ups out, push-ups.
The kid's tough.
Oh, he's in great
comes
shape.
here and he grinds. I mean, he's a grinder too.
He's in great shape, but he's probably 5'7", 150.
Yeah, he's not a big kid.
And so he goes, I got it, he says to you. And so we get over to the tire flip, and so it was my rest station when he was getting ready to go. And so I whispered to him, you better get 9. And so he got 6. And so then I came and threw the 10 down on top of him. And so his mom was like, you got what? And so then he was like, Todd came and was teasing him while he was doing the next station. He was like, you let that old man beat you? And he's like, he goes, I weigh 150 pounds.
Yeah, then it was excuses.
Todd's like, that's what you're going with? Okay, good.
That is exactly what I said. Because like before, he was like, oh, you're going to beat him. And then afterwards, like, I'm 150 pounds. But that was awesome. Dr. T's one of those that, like, when he comes and does circuit, like he counts, like he'll have like a certain count of things he does. A lot of people don't count their reps on things, but he's always counting it, trying to beat them.
That's for sure. My other one is the one that you let me write on the wall of the first Thunderdome, the 100 wall balls in 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's right. You go boom, 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 boom. Yeah. But he also has a shirt that says it says half pride, half hostess, like hostess ding dongs.
That's exactly right. But I have a terrible diet.
So we get to TCU. You mentioned that they had a great pre-med program. Now, did you know that's what you wanted to do? Because someone had talked about that you at one time was thinking about going into architecture.
Well, that's a good story from high school. So I wanted to be an architect, but my writing was terrible.
You and George Costanza.
There you go. Wow. Flash that one back.
You like that Seinfeld reference, Ross?
Yes.
Impressive. So I'm in the drafting classes, and the drafting teachers at the high school say, dude, you're never going to be an architect because your writing sucks. And that was back in the day before computerized assisted drafting, where you actually had to draw on the blueprint, And so they send me to the counselor or whatever, the career counselor, and she goes, well, what are you taking in college? I'm like, well, math, chemistry, science. And she goes, well, what are you going to, we got a plan for that? What do you want to do? And I go, well, I could be a teacher because my mom was a teacher. Mm-hmm. And the classic line is she goes, "We ever thought about being pre-med?" because you're taking pre-med classes. I said, no, because nobody in my family's a doctor. She said, well, you should think about being pre-med. I said, well, I could just be a teacher. And she goes, well, you could be a teacher, but if you're a doctor, you're more likely to have a pool. And that's a quote. And I don't know what I'm not even a big swimmer. I sink. But that was her line, was you're more likely to have a pool.
This is how I took it. Listen, motherfucker, you're too smart to be a teacher. Okay, you got to do something better.
Was that body?
And
Was that the definition of body?
Sort of, a little bit.
Before we started, Dr. T, so we can get as
and
body
no
as
offense
you
to any of
want.
the teachers out there, I was a teacher, but
So, and as was my mother. And so I said, all right, well, I guess I'll be pre-med. So I went off to college as like a pre-med guy because I was taking those courses anyway. But then I'm super competitive. And back in the day, a lot of the young people listening to this will blow their mind. After you took a test in college, how you found out the score was you went to the building and then there was a huge list. Everybody's social security number in the whole class listed. And that was how because nobody bothered to even think about social security numbers. That was how you found your grade. And so I ended up, there were 200, pre-meds and only 100 are going to make it to the second year. So then I was like always wanting to be up in the top numbers. And so ended up with a good enough, resume to get into med school.
Mm-hmm. So were you up at the top?
Yeah.
You can brag about it. That's what this
Were
show's
you
about, bragging
the
about you.
top?
No, not the top.
Gee, Ross,
top
can we
five.
get the top person on this show? I mean, can we? What is going on? This is second rate. We're second rate around here. So did you have any sort of passion for becoming a doctor, or once you got into it? I mean, was there,
Well, the science and
besides
math,
swimming pools?
No, the science and math was sort of what gets you going that direction. You have to like school, you have to like taking tests, and you got to like science and math. And so once you get into medical school, then it's like, what do I really want to do? Because a lot of people always say, why'd you become an OBGYN? What's up with that?
We can't wait to get to that one.
Well, it's interesting because it's not what people think. It's the only type of physician that is a primary care talkie person, which clearly I am, and is a surgeon. Mm-hmm. So when you think about it, like most of the time, if you're a general surgeon, you see somebody, you take their gallbladder out, and then you never see them again. Or
Peace. Thanks for the money.
That's right. Or if you're a family practice doctor, you may get to know people pretty well over years of seeing them. But then if they need surgery, you have to ship them to somebody else. So I really fancy myself a good surgeon, but I'm also obviously way too talky to not just see people. So OBGYN is the one doctor that is both primary care. I got people I've been seeing for 25 years. And when they had to have a surgery, I was the one who did the surgery. So, when you look at the medical benefit, if you have to go have a surgery, a lot of times you're like meeting the guy who's operating or gal who's operating on you for the first time. That's not great. Wouldn't it be better to have the person operating on you be someone you've known for 10 years? So that's sort of how I came into OBGYN.
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
I would never thought of it that way.
Never.
Yeah. Huh.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's how OBGYN sort of happened. And like I said, it wasn't even because I was going through, I liked medicine some, I liked surgery some. The only one I didn't like was psych. I think it was because my rotations were mostly playing video games with teenagers who were had a variety of things to throw at me and be mad. But so that was the only rotation I didn't like, but everything else I really thought was cool. And so OBGYN just was the natural, if you want to do operations and still see people, then you go from there. Because here in Alton now,
fascinating how
that is. I never thought.
Yeah, these are the things I like. These are the skills, and to line them up with that one particular.
what's your job going to be?
Like the Bo Jackson of the medical field, Ross.
Ah, awesome.
And knows it all.
That's right.
Yeah. So, at what point do you have to choose gynecology? Is that a word, Ross? Gynecology?
It's part of it.
You
part of
ask the doctor.
Okay.
So
I would ask you.
Obstetrics and gynecology. So that's the OBGYN, obstetrics being the whole baby part and gynecology being women's health care in general. So put the two together. But probably about the time you're a third year in medical school, that's where you have to start picking, what do I want to do? Because I'm going to go do some more of that. What happens is the first 2 years are mostly science related, and then starting your third year, you go into the hospitals and you have to do one of everything. And then you have to say, well, my senior year, I'm going to do 2 rotations in gynecology, and I'm going to go here do an OB rotation, that you have some more flexibility. So you sort of start to have to picking your third or fourth year of med school.
not to get too body using your word, but so your very first time, your very first examination, I guess you're with someone, you're assisting, or you're
right.
You're what's the word I'm looking for, Ross? I don't know. But anyway, you go there and you're just shadowing somebody or something like that. So how is that the first examination?
Well, the first pelvic exam that I actually witnessed from a speculum point of view, the part that helps, the woman did it to herself. She was a nurse, and we had 10 guys in a room, and she sat on a table and grabbed a speculum and put it in herself to show us how to do it.
Do you know what that tool is, Ross?
The duck thing. People are calling it the clamp or the duck thing.
So she just volunteered for that?
She was a paid volunteer nurse that was teaching med students how to do a pelvic exam, and then all 10 of us did the pelvic exam.
I bet she could kick your ass, Ross. I bet she was rough.
It's like I said, some of the people that take the time or energy to like do some of that training, it's unbelievable. Like or think about the people who donated their bodies for the cadaver lab. Mm-hmm. Your first year of med school, that's one of the things they throw you in the cadaver lab, and then good luck with that. I mean, that's a crazy one.
Now, I'm sure people would really want to hear about like the grind of like medical school and becoming a doctor. Can you tell us a little bit about that? How
and where? Back up just a little bit. So TCU for undergrad, and then where for medical school?
So I did University of Texas in Houston for medical school. My mom, while I was at Harvard, moved to Houston, and so I had been living with my mom and sister, after the divorce in Omaha for a long time. And then while I was gone to summer school, she and my sister moved to Houston. And they moved all my crap 2 miles to my dad and stepmother's house, including my cat, because they figured I'd want to finish my senior year of high school in Omaha, even though they had moved to Houston. So because my mom was my guardian.
Were they right about that?
Yeah, I would have stayed.
Okay.
I would have heard. It was fun to stay with dad and stepmom for a year because I hadn't lived with my dad since I was 8. Mm-hmm. So he initially treated me like I was 8, and then he was like, this is dumb. And then he treated me like I was 28, which was probably equally dumb. But so because she was in Houston, I could, and was my legal guardian at the time, I was able to get in-state tuition for all the Texas medical schools. So it was like half the price of a regular medical school. So UT Houston is where I did medical school, and then off to Duke for residency. So.
What was residency like? Was it?
Oh my! Well, that is not to denigrate military service, because the guys who've been in the military, I give full props to. But,
you're welcome for your freedom, Ross.
Thank you, Todd.
But what I tell people is the stuff we went through feels like we were in the military. When we have reunions and stuff, only the people who were there actually know. Here's a quiz. We're going to see how your math skills are. How many hours?
Okay, don't do that to me, please.
How many hours in a week?
What is it, Ross?
168.
168.
Okay. What's the most hours you've ever been awake working in 1 week?
Not sure.
My record's 128.
128.
People talk about, I got some extra overtime and worked 50 hours this week. Okay. Yeah, I had a couple times in residency where I was in the hospital working for 128 hours in 1 week, getting paid about $2.50 an hour.
So tell us about that. Tell us about that week. What is that? What are you doing? How's that work?
It's barely working. I mean, they have rules about that now.
I'm sure
that they have changed, but Duke, as an ivory tower, pretty much does what the hell they want to do. And so there were some times where I had a 60-hour shift that went from Friday 6 in the morning to Sunday 6 p.m., where I would run all the gynecology problems in the emergency room and do all the C-sections at Duke. So I did 17 C-sections in one weekend one time.
What's their mindset? What's their reasoning? Yes, their why on that. What are they trying to teach you?
I don't think they're trying to teach. They're just trying to, at that
weed
point,
weed out the week?
No. It's just there's so much work to do that there's just not enough people to do it all. Like if you look at a more of a private practice residency where you're like smaller market or something like that, like some of the residents that I would have dealt with, if they don't show up to do something, I just do it myself today. Well, at Duke, there might have been one guy like me, an attending physician, who was in charge of 3 different surgeries going on at the same time. And he would walk back and forth between the 3 rooms, and we would be doing the surgeries, and he'd just be walking in to make sure they were going okay every now and then.
Wow.
So it was like I said, there were some definitely moments of not safety. I like this one. So my wife always tells me to tell this story when it comes to people who are like calling in sick for work. One time during one of those 60-hour shifts, I got really bad tonsillitis, so bad that I couldn't swallow. So I got dehydrated and had a fever of 104. I didn't go home. They put an IV in me. So I had IV antibiotics and fluids walking around for 60-hour shift in the ER. I didn't see anybody that was sicker than me. So I was just walking around.
You think you're sick?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Well, I don't know what people think
time
when
for
their
this?
doctor walks in, pushing their own IV pole while they're on IV antibiotics. But that's the way it was. You just got the job done.
Now, the people that are like the doctors there, are they treating you guys like dog crap?
It's a little bit like a totem pole. You throw the shit at the totem pole, but what happens? It all falls to the bottom. So it gets better as you go along. But those first couple years are pretty rough.
Do you know what kind of regulations they have that on? Because it seems like if you're making decisions, I mean, you're in the worst state possible to make decisions. I mean, what kind of regulations do they have on that now? Do you know?
They do have limits of how many number of hours people can work in a week, and like if you've done a 24-hour call, then you're not supposed to work the next day, and all kinds of that kind of stuff.
Is anybody checking that?
I don't know. I hope so. One of the guys that I did residency with is now the chairman at Duke, so I suspect it's better.
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
Was that back in the Leitner days, or was that?
Let's see. So he was.
What?
No,
Because Leitner was when I was in high school. Yeah. So
I was at Duke 94 to 98. So I
Grant
finished
Hill?
98. That would have been about the right time. Yeah, I got to go to one Duke game. In my
One.
30s.
I guess Leitner. Grant Hill was a freshman. Leitner's
Wasn't
last
Leitner like
year.
91?
Because Grant Hill threw the
Yeah, you're right. Grant Hill threw the pass to him in the Kentucky game.
So that was probably 91.
Yeah, it's a cult of personality. Cameron Arena at Duke is a really cool place to go. No air conditioning, so it's 1,000,000 degrees, so that the other team is always hot and feels yucky. And then the student section behind the backboard has organized cheers on how to distract them from free throws. They actually had a guy who did his PhD thesis on different techniques to try and distract people at the time of the basketball game. It's not like just a bunch of people acting stupid.
Yeah.
They all stand
Reasoning.
up. They'll all stand up and have their arms one way, and they'll just be completely quiet. And the minute the guy goes to shoot, they switch their arms, or they'll go with the complete quiet. I mean, there's all kinds of. They had a study out to show which were the most effective ways.
And it's not a huge place.
No, it is packed.
Yeah.
So it's hot. I went to see the Campbell Camels was the one game I saw. I had the chairman's tickets for one game.
One game.
That's right. 4 years.
You didn't have time, right? Anyway.
No. Well, by the time you're a chief, things are better. But there's just so many cults of personality when it comes to dealing with residency stuff, and we work at the Cape Fear Hospital down in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and we had one attending who was a full bird colonel in the reserves, and he had one glass eye and one real eye. So you could never tell if he was looking at you because you couldn't remember which one was the real eye. And so he did 100% forceps deliveries where you put on the things that look like spoons to take the baby out. And he was so mean to the nurses. He would walk in the room, and if they were prepping with the wrong soap, he would pick up the huge metal tray and throw it across the room, in front of the patient and everything. And so he was just a notorious hard ass. And one time, when he was not supposed to be my attending physician for the weekend, I walked into a room and there was a brand new nurse furiously scrubbing to get the patient ready for delivery. And the older nurse looked and saw the two of us walk in, and she was like, "Oh no." And so Dr. Vieta was his name. He looks at the soap and he goes, "Dr. Turner, would you please throw the soap across the room?" And so I looked at the older nurse and she went. So I picked up the thing and threw it across the room just as I was told. So sometimes just some weird shit going on.
That's awesome. As dumb as you felt, it probably felt pretty good though.
It was a humorous moment, yeah.
Rewind real quick. I want to touch and for listeners out there also, if you work one of your busiest weeks, trying to get the Thunderdome ready, and you work 60 hours, 70 hours that week, you know how little you sleep. if you work 128 hours, please, I want to hear your breakdown on your sleep pattern.
Not good. My wife.
Were you sleeping on a cot in a closet at the
I would come home. My wife twice. I actually fell asleep in a plate of food because obviously I would come home from an 18-hour day, and it'd be 8 at night or something like that, and so she would make food. And I would say, just keep talking to me. And then eventually I would get lower and lower. And so there are pictures of me with a face like laying in a spaghetti, like just asleep in the spaghetti at the dinner table. So
how many hours are you getting when you get home and actually sleep before you're back there?
maybe 4 or 5. And then there's sometimes like the 60-hour shift, you never left the hospital. And so you'd sleep in a chair, or where if you fell asleep in the emergency room, somebody wake you up when somebody came in. I mean, you just sleep wherever you could. And like I said, it wasn't a good system, but when you get out the end of that, I see the shirts at Pride that say, whatever, steel sharpens steel.
Yeah, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah. Well, you freaking sharp when you get done with that.
Yeah. Everything else feels easy, right?
Well, when I came here, that was the first thing people were like, well, we'll just call him if there's a problem, because he doesn't even look like his pulse went up, from like some of the routine emergencies that we were having here, And I'm like, well, my people always say, what's the craziest, surgery you ever had? I did a C-section in a hallway on a patient
at the hospital
at Duke. All I had non-sterile gloves and a knife. The patient had been shot in the head, and they were keeping her alive. And while I was doing the C-section, her husband was grabbing my collar, screaming, "Save my baby!" while I did it in the hallway.
Wow.
Once you've done that,
the patient had been shot. They were keeping the patient alive, and you were trying to save the baby by C-section.
Yep.
Wow, and you had a husband pulling on you?
Yeah, while someone's grabbing your shirt while you're trying to do it.
Wow.
So once you kind of go through that, most of the routine stuff is, like I said, I'm not saying that's good.
Right.
It just is what it is.
Conditioned you to take on anything that came your way, yeah.
That's correct.
So where did you go after Duke?
So after Duke, came here to Alton. So my wife's the third.
How did that end up? How did you end up in Alton?
My wife's third generation St. Louis girl.
Okay.
And so we had been together. We met in college, got married after my first year in medical school. She came down from St. Louis to Houston, finished medical school. She came to Duke. And then I said, well, where do we want to go? And my family's kind of scattered all over the place, and all of her family was here in St. Louis. So we looked in the St. Louis area, and that's how we came here. Been in Alton 25 years. My younger son was born here in Alton. Oldest son was born at Duke. And then Jonathan, my younger son, was born here in Alton. And same house that we moved into 25 years ago.
Oh, really? Same house?
Wow. So did
you get a pool?
Yep. So
it's funny. You know what? Maybe that's why you did this. So whenever someone wins the Pride Workhorse Award, Dr. T is a former Pride Workhorse Award winner, of course.
Me too. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Anyway, he was actually.
I ain't making shit up here.
They get to take the horse heads home, and we have them take pictures, And Dr. T's went above and beyond with his pictures, but one of them is you with the horse head floating in your pool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then I took it to the OR.
Yeah, there's some funny ones in there.
Oh yeah. So the horse made its rounds.
It did.
I was proud. Yeah.
So get to Alton. So is it Alton Memorial?
Well, I've worked at Alton Memorial and St. Anthony's. St. Anthony's was actually who hired me. They had a group, Dr. Brown, Dr. Hardbeck, who were kind of the founding fathers of Alton OBGYN, hired me and Dr. Towski about the same time. He came in 97. I was here in 98. And now we're the two that have probably delivered half of Alton at this point. So it's interesting.
We had some comments on Facebook.
Yeah, we did. We put your pictures.
He delivered all my kids.
So many people like, yeah, he delivered our kid. He delivered all my kids.
It's funny being, a doctor that knows a lot of people in a smaller town. You end up with some funny interactions. My one time. We were I coached a bunch of teams for the boys growing up and everything. And I had Jonathan, my younger son, and a couple of his friends. We were going into Schnucks to get stuff for a baseball picnic. And while we were in the fruit area, like 3 different women said hi. And there was like a younger woman with a baby, and then a grandma, and then like a soccer mom. And one of the boys says to my son, "How does your dad know all these women?" Because it wasn't like they were all the same type. And so Jonathan, who's always been a math head, goes, "Well, there's 35,000 people in Alton and 15,000 in Godfrey. That's 50,000. Half of those are women. That's 25,000. 5,000 aren't old enough to see him yet. That's 20,000. So he has over 5,000 active charts. So statistically, 1 in 4 women should say hi."
That's great. I think one of my manager at the Brick House, I think she reply on there.
Did Monica? Yeah,
my girl
yeah.
Mo. I think.
Yeah. There was.
She says she say all kids.
Let's see. I can't find it because I shared it. So
Okay. So she might have. Okay.
It might have been on one.
Well,
I thought that popped up on mine.
At this point, I've actually
cool.
been here long enough. We have 35 patients who I have delivered a baby for that I delivered when they were born. So we call those my grand patients. So I delivered them like 24 years ago, and now I just delivered a baby for them. 35 of those.
Oh, 35 of those.
35 grand patients, yeah.
I have a lot of times when he's at Pride and like someone would come to like, my doctor's over there. they would never say it about their medical doctor. Do you know what I'm saying? It's my doctor.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what? And there's a medical doctor that comes here, Tariq Quadri.
Yeah.
And so I know they're not talking about him. I know who they're talking about.
Well, one of my nurse's favorite stories is I was a Boy Scout leader for a long time, and Wood River had the little patch shop, the Boy Scout shop that was not too far away from the new Pride. And so I'd have to go to pick up patches and books and stuff for the Cub Scouts. And there were two kind of career scout women who had worked in that shop for forever that were both my patients, and they were older in their 60s. And I always try and keep a low profile. You know, you don't walk up to somebody who's eating and go, "Hey, how you doing?" You know, that's not like
let them say hi to you.
Yeah, if they want to show me a picture or something, fine. But I'm going to go low key.
Right.
And so I was in scrubs, and I walk into the scout shop, and like I had been there a million times because buying patches and stuff. And there was one lady who was stocking the shelves, and she kind of recognized who I was, and she nodded like, "Hi," like low key. And so I go to check out, and I'm standing there in my scrubs with my stuff, and the lady who's checking me out clearly hasn't figured it out. She's like, "I know this guy from somewhere." And then I see her, light goes on, and she says to me, 60-year-old lady, "Oh, you know what? Every time I see you, it just makes me want to open wide." And I had this look of like, and she goes, "'Cause you're my dentist, right?" And I go, "No, I'm not your dentist." And she goes, "Oh, this is really embarrassing." I said, "Well, it's going to get more embarrassing because I'm actually your gynecologist." At which point the other woman was laughing so hard, she said, "I'm going to pee myself."
That's awesome. Do you have a lot of crazy stories like hot, like ones not like out in public, but like at the hospital, like just crazy things that happen to you?
Well, it's the hospital is a little more sedate most of the time. Most of our comical stories, or when it comes to OBGYN stories, the two questions that always get asked are, "What's your best baby name recently?" and "What's the funniest thing you've taken out of someone's vagina?" Those are the two questions that gynecologists get asked. So my funny baby name story, I do like to tell. I've got lots. Like some of them are visual. Like I could show you this name and see if you could pronounce it and go from there. So those are kind of funny. But the best story I like is actually from North Carolina. While I was working in the emergency room, I was a second-year resident, and a lady came in that was from Croatia, I think. And so her last name was K with a bunch of Y's and stuff, but she had Americanized it to King. So it was Mrs. King. And she was sitting on a stretcher complaining, "I'm going to have a baby. I've had 9 babies. I know I'm having a baby," and nobody would listen to her. And so I grabbed a nurse, pulled her behind a curtain, and she said, "It's coming out now." And she like dropped her sweatpants off, and I delivered it right there in the emergency room. And so it was fine, and cried, and all was good. And like I said, I think it was her 9th baby. So when I saw her the next day,
They just fall out at that point, right?
more or less. So when I saw her the next day on the floor, I went to check on her and see how things were going. And I said, "So what are we calling this little guy?" And she goes, "We're going to call him Nosemo." And I'm like, "Nosemo?" And I was thinking, well, Croatia, maybe that's like there's somebody's got an Uncle Nosemo or something, because I got some Slovak in my past. And so sometimes those Eastern European names are a little weird. And I'm like, "Nosemo, huh?" I go, "Is that a family name?" And she goes, No, God told me to name him Nosmo. I'm like, God talked to you? Because she seemed like a normal person. And she goes, no, he didn't talk to me, but he showed me a sign. And I'm like, really? Like a burning bush sign? Or what kind of a sign? She says, no, you got to remember, we're in the emergency room, and nobody's listening to me, and you're the only person who listens to me, and I'm nervous that because I know this baby's coming out, and I'm really nervous how it's
Did she
going to
not look pregnant or something? Why would...
I don't know. It was busy, and nobody was paying attention to it. She maybe wasn't screaming enough. She was just sort of sitting there. And so you pull me behind the curtain, and you told me everything was going to be okay, and then he came out and cried, and you held him up, and I was so happy, and right over your shoulder was the big red and black sign with his name, Nosmo King.
I'm trying to put it back. I'm trying to go the other way. It's
no smoking. No smoke. She saw the no smoking sign. So she named him Nosmo Allen King because she saw in big red and black letters, Nosmo King. So I still have that birth certificate.
I started writing it, but I put the E in it, and that's how,
So Nosmo King is my favorite baby delivery.
That's awesome. There was someone who commented on a thing and says, Riley was pretty early, so my doctor was out of town. Dr. Toner was on call. I remember when he asked, as soon as he was delivered, we didn't know the sex. He said, what's his name? So they would know it was a boy. Right. And she said, Riley. And you held him high up in the air, and he said, welcome to the life of Riley.
Well, we try and keep it light. For a lot of people, there's a lot of medical stuff that's scary. People having a baby for the first time, it's a big unknown. And so, not to be a clown or anything, but you want to try and keep it light most of the time. To be a good physician, especially in OBGYN, you have to be kind of a good actor. Some people need hand-holding like a grandpa. Other people need a cheerleader. Other people need a drill sergeant. And you have to be able to identify what those people want fairly quickly, or else they're not going to come back and see you. I have 70-year-old women who come to see me for an annual, and if I say 2 sentences, they'll think I'm being too chatty. And then I have like some 45-year-old kind of perimenopausal women who, if I don't tell 2 dirty jokes, then I'm not working hard enough. And so you have to be able to be flexible with that. So sometimes we'll try and keep it light. I've done a delivery dressed as Darth Vader.
Well, I was going to say...
Whoa, what?
Well, I was going to say, it says the career aptitude test that you took showed that you'd be best suited to be a stage or theater director. And so they said... you'll dress up sometimes in costumes for patients' deliveries. Darth Vader, Mike Myers, an Olympic pentathlon.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Well, the aptitude test that's a great story. So my wife is a dancer. She has a degree in modern dance and ballet.
So we're skipping over the fact that he dresses up. I hope we come back.
We can come back if you want. But so so we're at TCU, and so her degree's in modern dance and ballet. And so I'm obviously biology. And so we got paid $100. Sometimes you take those like 30-second, what should your job be test? This was a like 3-hour test that involved not only questions, but like doing dexterity things and stuff. So like, what is your real aptitude? So we took these 2 tests. And so we get our results back. And so she's once again a dancer. And she is told she's supposed to be a colorectal surgeon. And she's like, what the hell?
That's what mine said too, Ross.
Oh, there's so many jokes there that I'm not touching. And then mine came back, said I was supposed to be a Broadway producer. And so we've always said that's why our marriage works, is she is a dancer, like from Broadway, who's supposed to be a surgeon, and I'm a surgeon who's supposed to be a Broadway producer. So, but the costumes, like I said, it's mostly for people who've either I know or nurses that were doing the delivery to try and be humorous or something like that. The Friday the 13th.
How do they come about?
How do the costumes?
Do they ask?
Yep, I have a couple. Like I said, I have a couple that big horror movie fan. So they asked to be induced on a Friday the 13th, and after the baby came out, the dad threw a ski mask on me and took a picture. So the first picture in their baby book is a bloody baby being held by a guy in a Jason mask.
I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know.
Oh, well, when I see people for the first time,
I'm not sure it's a thing with every doctor, but do they have one who's willing?
Well, when I go into talk to, Wednesday morning is when I see all my new pregnant persons. So take a little more time to sit with them and talk. And so I say, this is all about how you guys want to do labor and delivery. This is not about how I want to do labor and
And then
delivery.
they're like, yeah,
Well,
you're right, Doc.
I say-
you dress as Darth Vader.
Well, I say then I'll always say, well, I've had some interesting requests over the years. I had the couple that wanted no talking in their delivery room. So we spent 6 months working on hand signals that were in a little book for how she wanted things in labor. And so she came in labor, played classical piano music. Me and the nurses did hand signals. Only one word was said. As the baby's head came out, she said the F word really loud.
The
mom.
The mom.
All right. And then I had a couple come in and say, they brought in a disco ball, burned incense, and played underwater whale sounds like the whole time. So I was woozy by one time that one came out. And then the one that the nurses love to give me shit about to this day, a couple comes in and says, Dr. Turner, we'd like the birth of our baby to be as close to the birth of the baby Jesus as possible. So we're both going to be naked for delivery, and we wonder if you would be naked too. And I said, no.
No.
And they said, would you wear this camel hair tunic from the Middle East? No. So I wore white cotton scrubs, and they were both naked.
There's some crazies in this world.
Oh, you know it.
It's funny is like this happened, I think it was a week or two ago. One of his nurses that works out here comes in and is like, oh yeah, I said, hey, where's Dr. T? Oh, he's not making it, had a delivery. Next thing I know, we get towards the end of the line of people coming in from Pride, and there he is, like, well, I thought you weren't making it. Oh, the baby came out quicker than I thought.
Blood on my shoes that day.
So that's just how it rolls, huh?
Got to be able to get up and go. I mean, if I was smart, I should have been a dermatologist probably, a lot better hours, but
right.
It is what it is.
Yeah. So do you enjoy what you do now?
Oh, yeah.
Do you love it?
Yeah, it's being women's advocate is the way I sort of look at it a lot of times, because there's a lot of bad information out there. I mean, the information age or being able to look up stuff certainly can empower people to get some information they didn't have, but they're also in danger of getting bad information. And so my whole job is try and get them good information or try and, get through the bad and that kind of thing. So it's the variety, like if you do the same thing, because, I do sort of the same thing, but, I'll see 18-year-old newly pregnant person who's first time she's ever been to the gynecologist, and then I got somebody who needs a biopsy who's got funny growth that needs to be looked at, and then I got this morning I did surgery at 7:30 for someone who after menopause was having bleeding, so she had to have a camera kind of scope. So it's a wide variety of stuff that you get to do. So
Every patient is a different story, a different situation.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's and so for the most part it's very, all the dumb stories that you hear of people doing dumb stuff or sad stuff, for the most part, those are pretty rare. For the most part, we're a happy specialty. We're, get the cute baby out and everybody's happy and you make some jokes and, smile and go on. It's only when, occasionally when you got sad stuff, people have a miscarriage or something like that you have to walk them through the science of it and really try and talk to people. I spend a lot of time when it comes to miscarriages, there's a conception that you could do something to have a miscarriage. It doesn't happen that way. Most miscarriages happen before the end of the first trimester. You can't make yourself have a miscarriage. People have been trying for 1,000 years to have a miscarriage on purpose who didn't mean to be pregnant. Mm-hmm. People are cheap, right? So if you could save $1,000, if you have to go to Granite City and have a termination, that's a lot of money to pay. So if you could, I actually had somebody do 3 lines of Coke, douche with hot Mountain Dew, and jump out of a tree trying to have a miscarriage, and all she did was break her ankle. So if she can't make herself have a miscarriage...
Sounds like a fun Saturday night, Ross.
And so if she can't... So a lot of people come in and they feel guilty. Like, oh man, if I hadn't had that beer, or if I hadn't had sex the other... No, none of that makes you... So I spent a lot of time saying, you can be sad about a miscarriage, but you should not feel guilty. You did not do anything to make this happen. Things just didn't get set up right. 40% of human pregnancies end in miscarriage. That's
40%.
40%. That's almost half. But most of the miscarriages happen so early that some people didn't even know they were pregnant. Back in the old days when we were killing rabbits and trying to do all those testing and we didn't have ultrasound, most of the time we didn't know. It's only been later now that so many people can get a home test and know 3 days after they're pregnant. But 40%. So that's almost half.
Wow.
I wouldn't have came close to guessing that.
No.
Yeah.
So, like, one thing that's it's probably great about your job, and you kind of touched on it, is you're with, like, having a child is supposed to be like one of the most joyous, like, greatest thing that ever happened to people. And so you're there for those moments. One, when they find out they're pregnant. Two, whenever they have their first child or have a child.
It's very exciting. So, like I said, that kind of thing doesn't get old. Just the excitement of people. Yeah, there are people we got social challenges out there in the world, and people who didn't mean to be pregnant and all that, and there's family drama and stuff. So you get a fair amount of that, but most people, it's like a happy time, and just is kind of a fun thing to get to be part of that sort of for so many people. Because everybody says, "Oh, how many babies have you delivered since you came to Alton?" And it's probably between 4,500 and 5,000.
That is a lot of deliveries.
Yep, and like I said, some of them are now having babies.
Yeah. Yeah, baby having babies, Ross.
Famous line of Todd Locks.
Yeah. The other one is what is it? It takes what is it?
Not very famous if you don't know it.
1,000 screws to make 1,000 screws to put together a crib, but only one to make a baby, or something like that.
Excellent.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
So. So you've been in this 25 years. What have you seen, like, technology-wise? What is some of the new things that have come about that just made your job better or made it worse in it?
Well, I think that technology can be looked at. Just because something is new and fancy doesn't always mean it's better. There are certainly some things. Dr. Christine Taylor, who's a partner of mine and also a Pride visitor, for instance, is now able at Alton Memorial do a robotic hysterectomy, where she actually sits in a corner where the machines, things that are doing the hysterectomy on the inside of somebody without having to make a big incision. So that kind of hysterectomy for some people who are really heavy, where they would have used to have a humongous incision and could have been very high risk, she's actually able to do, she got the training and able to do that. That was something that developed after I was in training. And like I said, she can work some crazy magic, and that's something that's new. The surgery I did this morning, in the old days when people had a lot of heavy bleeding or bleeding after menopause, they'd get a DNC. Everybody's always talking about a DNC, which was basically just scraping around in there to make sure there was no cancer. Well, now we have a little camera that's smaller than a soda straw that goes in so I can see what's in there. So instead of just scraping around blindly, I can actually take a sample with a little, looks like a Roto-Rooter device, but I can do it right underneath while I can see it going on the camera. So that kind of technology.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. So you used to have to you're just kind of going and you don't see anything. Nope. You're just kind of hoping you get it, and now you can actually see what you're doing. Wow.
Yes. So those kind of things have made. There are certainly some advances there in trying to make, at least our part of OBGYN better. You can see some of that as well in Dr. Sturton at our hospital has a certain approach to doing hip replacements that used to not exist a decade ago or so, and so it makes it a lot easier for recovery. So I think that, we're seeing advances. Some of the stuff is the same. Baby's still coming out of the vagina, so we still got to...
See that? Hear that, Ross? Babies are still coming out of the vagina. See, that's where they come from, Ross, the vagina. Mm-hmm. Got it.
Oh, yeah. Well, you never know. I had one person who came in for a GYN visit, for her first OB visit, and on the form she had checked never sexually active. And I said, so I thought after talking to her that she had just sort of checked the wrong box, so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to give her.
She's single? I'm just kidding, Ross. Ross, can you edit that out? Can you edit that out?
So she had checked, like I said, the box on her history and physical, never sexually active, even though she was there for her new OB appointment. So after seeing that, I teased her a little bit about it, and I said, so I see I get to be Jesus's gynecologist here. She said, what do you say? I said, see, look, you checked the box for never sexually active. She goes, oh, I'm not. I just lay there.
That's pretty good.
True story.
That's a true story?
True story.
She's a lot of fun at parties, Ross.
You still want her number?
Well, that's pretty good. That's good. So did you say, did you laugh and then tell her what that meant?
No, we laughed. I said, that's not really what that box means, but, we try not to give her too hard of a time about that. So
even if she thought that, wouldn't you lie about that?
Well, when it comes, there are some things, for instance, the one thing I think people should not lie about, let's be clear, but you should be low key. Like I'll come into a room and there'll be a girl there for her new pregnancy, and she's, let's say 22. And I've never met her before, but the guy sitting in the chair I recognize because I have delivered some babies for him before.
Geez.
So I'm going to totally low play that.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to be like, be a dick about it or anything. So I'm trying to be.
How's that? How's a?
No, well, I mean, almost every time as we're talking through things, he'll go, "Oh yeah, Dr. Turner's a great doctor. He delivered all my kids." I'm like, dude, that's so uncool. But
Yeah.
Like,
Makes her feel special.
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. So that's you end up with some of that. There's. I have a few like good comeback lines that over the years that the nurses are big fans of, like the classic in the delivery room. So baby comes out, dad's standing there. I'm doing some stitches, for put everything back together. And the dad goes with the, "Hey doc, would you put a couple extra stitches in there for me?" To which I always respond, only guys with small dicks say that.
Oh, bang. Body, Ross, right there, body.
That usually gets clapping from the mom, and then the guy says nothing else.
That's awesome. Now, have you seen where technology kind of it's hindered you, or it's sort of a negative in your profession?
I don't know about a negative. It sometimes makes it more complicated. So, for instance, when we're doing a hormone test on a new pregnancy, because it's so easily available, you can get a test that says, okay, well, she's pregnant, but until that test, the hormone level gets high enough, if you do an ultrasound, you can't prove that she's pregnant. So, yeah, I know she's pregnant chemically, but there's no embryo or baby to look at yet. So the problem is when you'll have somebody come into the emergency room with spotting or something like that. I'm newly pregnant. I don't know what's going on. A lot of people will then order an ultrasound that doesn't show anything. Well, it's not going to show anything because the hormones aren't far enough along yet. And so then you have to try and explain, okay, we're going to do another hormone level in 2 days, and it should be going up. And once it gets high enough, but some people just don't buy that. And so
they pee on that little thing they get from Walgreens and I'm pregnant, and probably announce it on Facebook before going to the doctor.
So I don't think it has caused, like I said, sometimes there's a little more complications, like for some of the fancy surgeries. Just because you can do it a fancy way, does that always make it a better way? Not always. And so you just have to make sure that the people are using it for the right reasons. We have a thing that we do that's called an endometrial ablation, where, for lack of a better explanation, I'm going to fry the inside of the uterus to try and make somebody's period smaller. Okay? And it has saved a lot of people having to have a hysterectomy over the years. Well, there's a place in Dallas where there's a female OBGYN who has opened a clinic that's essentially a strip mall, and you go in one door. She takes no insurance, no Medicaid. You write her a check for $2,000. You get a mani-pedi while you're waiting. Everything is done Egyptian, like Cleopatra theme. There's like guys with no shirt, like fanning you. You get your mani-pedi, then you get your ablation, and then you eat a light snack like brunch, and then you go out the other door. Well, that's not good medicine, but she's making a shit ton of money just doing the same thing over and over. And so that may be hiding uterus cancer or something. It's not. She's using a technology because it's trendy, not because that's the way it should be used.
No.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
What's your favorite all-time doctor hospital show?
Well, watched ER from the very beginning when that was on.
I was an ER person back in the day, yeah.
And so I really like that.
Is that the one with Clooney?
Yes. Originally with Clooney. And so that was going on.
You're a big fan.
Yeah, I am.
Well, man crush is okay.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think that that was probably my favorite. What was fun about it was all those stories were realistic, but what was different about it was they would put like a week of stories into one day.
Yeah.
Like, if you hang out in the emergency room long enough, you'll see everything that just happened. It's just it doesn't usually all happen on the same day in your 1 hour TV show.
Well, you got to keep Todd hooked.
Right.
Interesting.
Attention span.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I got you.
I never watched Grey's Anatomy. Isn't that another really popular one? I never watched that one.
That was a little more soap opera-y, but it was still, I think we probably watched most of it the first 3 or 4 years. A lot of those shows then started going down.
Stop it. Do not get Todd on this. Todd has a PhD in telling you about shows and how they go downhill.
Well, like
I'm going to save it, Ross.
Like LA Law, Ally McBeal, all of those were like really good law shows too, until they had about the 4th season where I think the writers started going off the deep
Doc,
end.
you don't know what you're getting yourself into.
I'm going to keep it in, Ross. I'm going to keep it in.
You guys are going to
They
have
this
some
great
good. You guys are going to have some good talks after Pride here.
Excellent.
This is going to show my age of 40 years old. But remember St. Elsewhere back in the day,
yeah.
a long time ago. That was really good.
That was a good one.
Yeah, that was a great show. Now, how many kids you have? 2 boys?
2 boys, 26 and 22.
I've met them both. They've come to Pride before. One got married.
One's married a couple years, lives just north of Alton, and the other one just graduated WashU chemistry degree, lives in Soulard.
I was just going to ask, not either one of them go into the medical field?
No, the younger one has a chemistry degree, and so for a long time, I think he thought he was going to go into medicine. And we were always like, don't go into medicine because I'm in medicine. That's not a good reason. I don't think he knew what he really wanted to do. And so once he was about a junior in college, he was like, I'm not sure I want the medicine part of this. I think the chemistry part is more where I'm at. So he's doing chemistry. So.
Gotcha.
And then Steven, my oldest son, went out to L.A., got a degree in film and like video game production. And so he actually has a friend that he does like movie reviews, like a Siskel and Ebert podcast and stuff like that. So he's the one who helped me see,
find artists.
make sure I can know what I was getting into. But so that's kind of fun. I like it in that his job is a job I didn't even know was a job. Like makes me feel old because I'm a video game guy from way back. And we played all the video games with the boys growing up. And so his job, he works for a company that he is like the voice coordinator for some big video games. Like, so in Call of Duty, if you're doing the campaign, you have to walk around and talk to people. Well, voice actors had to come in and do all those lines. And so for some of them, there's like 1 million lines of stuff. And so, because, the players could be doing different stuff. So he works, a lot of times voice actors, if you're a film actor, you've read the script, the story, you're acting things out. Voice actor comes in, well, the script is like, kind of secret for these video games sometimes. And so they have no idea what their character's doing. So he's got to be the one who says to them, all right, your character's doing this, and so you need to sound like
under
this.
Distress.
Yeah, he was working with Nick Cage the other day.
Really?
So it's kind of a cool, like I said, I said, that's a job,
Seriously, yeah.
Yeah, so you don't think about it, but he got to work with William Shatner, who came in and did a cameo in a Western, I think, that his company was dealing with. And so he was like the sheriff, and he has to say, looks like somebody's going to die today. And then
Todd, you do it.
I say that.
You do it, Todd. Do it.
I say that 4 times a week here at Circuit. Looks like somebody's going to die today.
That's very good.
How'd I do, Ross?
Very good.
How'd I do? Good?
I think he's calling his son right now.
I think that was good. But then he also had to say it because the sheriff could be drunk. So Steve's like,
Say it, Todd. Hold up. Come on.
I think somebody's going to die today. I don't know why you keep telling me to do that, and I just keep doing it.
So I think that's kind of fun. And so when you talk about things to be proud of or whatever, one of my proudest things, and I give my wife all the credit for this for the most part, but we got a 26 and a 22-year-old boy who've never had a fight.
Never had a fight with each other? Mm-hmm. Wow.
Now, they had one disagreement one time, but other than that, they're still best friends. They went to Post Malone the other day in the pouring rain, and Johnson's like, thanks for coming, Stephen, because nobody else would do this with me. And so they're still great friends to this day, and I think that's because good parenting that my wife did. So because I was trying to help, but I mean realistically, she was in charge of the show while I'm doing my thing. So
Ross and I, we actually fought this morning already. Sergeant Margaret, what the hell did you do?
I came down here just to fight.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you didn't know about the podcast, probably. What advice would you give anybody wanting to go into the medical field? Well,
you just want to make sure from a practical point of view, it's a long road. So I look at my son who, had a perfect score on the ACT and was at WashU and a chemistry major. That's the kind of person who you're going to go on and do something you would in the medical field if they want to. But you really got to want to, because it's not like I'm just going to show up and be done. I mean, it's like a grind. And now it's better than it was. Obviously, my residency stories, are different than it is different now. But you can't just be kind of casualing your way into medicine, because they've changed a lot of the rules. Like when I got into med school, I don't think I'd even been in a hospital. I had a good MCAT score, which is the thing you take to try and get into medical school. And I was a biology major with a good GPA. I hadn't been to, now you got to do 100 hours of shadowing a doctor and 100 hours of volunteer service in the hospital, even to get your application in. So it's a bigger grind.
That's probably a good idea, right?
Oh, yeah, I think it's a great idea, because then you won't have, the medical schools can't afford to have people come to medical school that can't make it out. And so they're just trying to make it, more obvious that you really want to do that than back in the day. So I think you just, like I said, you don't necessarily have to have a doctor saved my life, so I want to be a doctor kind of thing, or my mom had cancer. Those are all great stories, but you also got to have a realistic outlook of, okay, well, I've got enough chutzpah when it comes to the academics to get through the whole thing, because even medical school, like residency was a physical grind. Medical school is interesting. I didn't study as much as I probably should have, but it's one of those where they give you, if you studied 24 hours a day for 5 days and you could do this much work, they're going to give you just a little more than that. That there's no way you can possibly do it all. So then they're going to test you on stuff that you probably haven't been able to study and see how you do with that. And so that's sort of when you were talking about the weed out process, that's the sort of like, how do you handle stress? I had a thing.
Well, you have to be able to deliver a baby in a hallway with someone who's a dying patient who's been shot with someone. You got to figure out a way to somehow put them in very unfavorable conditions.
One of the tests I had to do for residency interview was you go into a room, and so at Duke, the chairman, when I was there, was one of the more famous people in OBGYN, wrote the textbook that most places worked on. And one of the most famous surgeons was at Duke, who wrote the big surgery textbook. And the two of those guys, who are obviously pillars of the medical community, you go into the chairman's office, and they're sitting behind a desk, and there's a coffee can on the desk. And so after some pleasantries, they say, we would like you to tie a surgeon's knot at the bottom of this coffee can to that paper clip that's attached to a magnet. And if you pull the paper clip off the magnet, the light will go on, and you have to begin again. And so the trick is, this test is like the Kobayashi Maru. Do you know that reference? It's a Star Trek reference. So it's the test that can't be beat. Mm-hmm. So you put your hands in the coffee can to try and tie this knot down, but to do a surgeon's knot, you have to put a little pressure on one of the strings. And the minute you do that, the paper clip will come off the magnet and the light goes on. So then you have to start all over. So it's not a test that you can actually do. So they're not testing to see how good your knot tying is. They're testing how good your emotions are to fail repetitively in front of two of the most famous people in medicine. Mm-hmm. And so you just keep going until they tell you to stop. And that's what I did. I just
so you were doing that?
Oh yeah. I just keep going. And so that, I think, is one of those tests I've had. I was doing a surgery, and I had a med student watching the surgery, and so was down in the pelvis, and there was a little thing that was bleeding, and I was put a stitch around it, and then I try and coagulate it with our electrical thing, and it kept bleeding. And so she says to me, so what happens if we can't get that to stop bleeding? I said, we're going to be here until it stops bleeding. We're working without a net. It's not like, shit, I guess that didn't work, so we're just going to go home.
Bad day at the office today, going to head on home, just nurse clean this up, we're out of here.
Right. So I think that kind of thing, when you have to do that kind of thing, because there is no net. Like I said, there's not, you can call for help and that kind of thing. If you're in a surgery that requires more than one person, one of my partners will come and help. But another time we were doing a C-section, and the baby was sort of sideways in the uterus, and I had to reach in, grab the feet, and kind of pull it all the way around and out. And the med student said to me, so what happens if you can't get the baby out? I said, you know what? There's a lot of ways the surgery ends, and all of them end with the baby out. So I think that kind of like, well, what happens if you can't do it? Well, there is no you can't do it. You just do it, and you'll be there doing it until it's done.
Wow. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Now, some questions I'll catch a lot of crap if we don't ask you.
All right.
Okay. So what?
I'm ready for this.
Brace yourself, Ross.
All right.
So what is top 3 oddest things you've taken out of vagina?
So let's see. We'll go with because everything comes in 3. So these are always the most popular stories at the cocktail party. So when I had first moved to town, I had, back in the day when you went up to the door and there was like a chart on the door, and I would pull it off and see what the problem was. Now it's all electronic, but this was back when I first moved here. And the chart says plant growing out of vagina. And so I was looking around like someone's being stupid about this. I thought Towski was teasing me or something as the new guy. And I asked my nurse, I said, well, is this real? And she goes, yeah, it's real. I'm like, okay. And so the lady was 50. She'd had a hysterectomy. And so I go in and I say to her, so I understand you maybe have a little green discharge or something coming out of your vagina? Because I'm like, what else? What's your segue for this? I don't know. It's not in any book.
Segue.
Yeah.
You just let that slide?
I'm sorry, Rob. I'm still the plant, the green stuff. I don't know.
And so, because that's not in a book anywhere, so you're going to have to MacGyver this, just figure it out. And so she goes, no, doctor, it's leaves. And I said, you've been camping or mowing the grass in a moo-moo lately or anything?
Did she maybe come from my yard? Remember?
That's a good reference right there.
There was a old thing that happened on one time. I walked out of my door, and there was a chick sitting, leaning against a tree, just in a bra and panties, and she had leaves stuffed down in her pants.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was the same one. So, sorry.
Not the same
one
person.
with the nature that day.
Yeah.
That's okay. So she says, no, it's leaves. And so we go to do her exam, and what had happened was she had a hysterectomy in the past. And if you have a hysterectomy, most of the support to your low pelvis is attached to the uterus. And so people who've had a hysterectomy, it's more likely that their bladder and rectum can kind of pooch out of the vagina a little bit. You okay there?
Yep, good.
All right.
Good.
And so she had a problem where if she stood up for a long time, her bladder would start to pooch out of her vagina. So she was in her kitchen making 7 batches of her world-famous beef stew for an upcoming church picnic, and her bladder started to fall out, and so she took half of a red potato and shoved it up her vagina to keep stuff from falling out, and it felt better, and she forgot about it, and the potato was sprouting.
Okay.
That's my most tame one.
So, okay.
So I just took
the bladder was coming out while she was making beef stroganoff.
Right.
So she what better way to plug it up than with a red potato?
Right. We actually have little rubber things. That
I thought you were gonna say you still had the potato.
No, that would be a no. It has grown. No.
You should make a little trophy case of these things.
Oh,
so yes. It's sprouting.
Yeah, because it had been in there for a while and it was sprouting, and so we took it out and everything was okay. But she still sees me to this day.
She still sees you. How long ago was this?
That was 23-ish years ago.
Todd would have got a new doctor. He was not coming back to see you.
You can't go back there, can you, Ross?
You wouldn't.
You would.
Well, so I think that was... we actually have a little rubber thing that's called a pessary that looks like a little Frisbee that's about the size of like a tennis ball but flat. Mm-hmm. And that's the actual thing designed to do that instead of the red potatoes. So some people will wear that around to make sure that their stuff doesn't fall out. But she was just using it as that, using a potato.
She could definitely mark the box, not sexually active. I'm guessing.
Correct.
Yeah.
At least for that time. So that's number one. So then, this is a classic one. So I get a call from a 38.
Yeah, let me go back to this. I'm sorry.
No,
is she like embarrassed? Like, is she like just things that happen?
I think she was so happy. She was like, oh.
That it wasn't a plan. Oh, that's where that potato. I wondered why we were short that. I wonder why little Johnny didn't get.
So I think she was just happy it wasn't
his share of potatoes that day.
His tater. It was in my vagina all along.
That is correct.
Okay.
So I think she was just happy it wasn't anything serious.
Yeah, well, it's true.
So then, let's see, second story.
A potato sprouting out of your vagina is not serious. No, it's not.
Let's see. So I got a 38-year-old divorcee calls me up at the end of the day. I've delivered her 8 and 10-year-old kids. Mm-hmm. And says, Dr. Turner, I went to Fast Eddie's last night, partied pretty hard, picked up some younger men. I don't remember a lot of what happened.
Men or man? Men? Men.
I don't remember a lot of what happened, but something's wrong down there. Can I come in? And I'm like, sure, come on in at the end of the day. So she comes in and...
This is a phone conversation?
Yeah, phone conversation. I said, just come in at 4 o'clock. So she comes in at the end of the day, floppy hat, sunglasses, trench coat, comes to the back. We go to do her exam, and I can't put the speculum in because there's stuff in the way. And so I'm like, okay, so I'm going to have to reach in and pull out whatever's in there. And I'm kind of I can feel some hair. So
is it like the claw thing, like at restaurants? We know the claw goes down, like you're trying to
the claw at Fast Eddie's.
That's right. And so I can feel hair, and I'm worried I'm going to have like a mouse moment or something because you hear about those stories. And so I'm a little squeamish because you don't know what you're going to get. And I pull out a Barbie head. And I go, it's a Barbie head. And she sits up in the stirrups. So what? And I kind of wave it at her. And I go, well, hold on. There's some more. So there were 5.
5 Barbie heads.
5 Barbie heads, yeah.
Ironically, Ross, I'm going to see the Barbie movie tonight. Ironically.
The movie will seem different now.
It will seem it will seem different now. 5 Barbie heads.
So that's the record. So if you need to go for more.
So these younger men, they get back to their buddy's place like,
Did you
have 5 Barbie heads? 5!
When she said younger men, like
I'm like, how old were these guys?
Yeah, how old were these guys?
Why do we have some Barbies?
And where the hell's Ken? Where's Ken?
Now, what's so great is that was the line my nurse whispered in my ear as we left the room.
Where's Ken?
Yeah, where the hell's Ken? Is what she said.
Okay.
So
Like-
that's story 2.
Like she doesn't you can't check up in there yourself?
You certainly could if you weren't scared of what you would get.
Oh, okay. She thought it could be a rabid gerbil.
Possibly. And then I guess the third story, just to finish the trifecta. So it's a Tuesday morning, and someone comes in for an annual exam, and not a complaint. Just
not
a
a
scheduled
Just
exam
a
on a
normal
Tuesday.
day.
Just getting your pap smear. Hey, how you been? Fine, good. Kids good? Yeah, fine. So heart, lung, breast exam, all normal. And I go to do her pelvic exam, and there's a tube sock in her vagina with a red stripe and everything. And I go, there's a tube. And I grabbed a forceps and I pull it out and I throw it in the trash. And I go, there's a tube sock in your vagina.
Are you chastising her?
A little bit.
Because what you push part of your job is pushing hygiene.
Well, we've been.
There's a sock up there.
Now remember, this is Tuesday. That'll be important in a moment.
Okay.
And so, and I delivered her kid, so we have a relationship. So it's not like, whoa, just somebody random pulled the sock out of my vagina. So I said, there's a sock in your vagina, and she goes, oh shit. Saturday night, I was having sex in a barn, and we didn't have a condom, so I used a sock instead. So
what night? Saturday
night.
Okay.
So it's Tuesday morning. So I got a couple of questions. One,
Well, we're going to have to go ahead and do a pregnancy test.
well, so when we left the room, Christy, who's my head nurse, whispers to me, she goes, that was the most professional cover I've seen in a while. I'm like, what? She goes, do you even remember what you said? And I think, no, because my brain was thinking, this is the dumb shit thing I have seen in a decade. But my mouth said, a sock is not an approved contraceptive device. How's that for professional? So, but a couple of my questions were, did someone take the sock off their foot? Because why else would you have an extra sock in the barn?
In the barn.
Yeah,
Right.
She left her office. She called, Carly, goddamn, I found your sock.
Or when you're driving home, you don't go, man, where the hell's my other sock? So those are my 3 top of those.
Man, I almost want to go for 10, but I don't know. It's almost lunchtime. I was going to have potato soup, but not
anymore.
Not anymore. That is something. Now, here's another question, Ross. I got to ask. I have to ask this, Ross. This is another like that one we have to ask, okay? You told me to ask it before. I said, okay, I will. So, doing this all day, does it kind of, I don't know, desensitize you to having sex yourself?
I would say no.
No.
From a practical point of view, it's a little bit more like plumbing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, looking at somebody's elbow, or it happens to be dealing with female anatomy. But from a practical point of view, it just is I don't think it's that much different than if like a dentist or something like that. For me, I just look at it that way, is that it's just one more piece that you're looking at that needs to be checked out.
Like when you say a dentist, like a dentist wouldn't be odd for him to have oral sex then. Is that how that's how you're sort of referencing this?
Well,
open wide.
Well, yeah.
Open wide.
Well, the dentist and I are like your least popular doctors, I think, by usually. I have a couple friends who are dentists, and we're always comparing
Our reputation.
Who's worse? Like, who would you rather go to?
Yeah.
And I had a patient that I had known for a long time, and she said she was going straight for me to see the dentist. And I said, wow, that's like might as well get a colonoscopy.
I like how
and
she
do the
rolls.
trifecta.
She's just knocking it out.
Yeah.
Afterwards, she was going to go buy tires because no one wants to do that either.
Go to the DMV. Right?
Yeah, right.
So I said, well, who's worse, me or the dentist? And she said, I hate to tell you this, Dr. Turner, I'd rather go to the dentist than come here.
Wow.
And I go, I'm a lot faster than the dentist. And she says, yeah, but I don't have to be naked for as long at the dentist. And I said, for as long, we're going to have a talk about your dentist if you're naked at all. So always the dentist I always compare it with that way. So.
Speaking of the DMV and no one likes to go. One time I went to the DMV and this girl started, she knew Ty because our other brother, he teaches driver's ed. And she's like, oh, you're Ty's brother. Yeah. She's like, oh, you own that gym down at the Pride. She's like, yeah. She's like, yeah, I've been wanting to come down there, but I heard you're really mean. If somebody from the DMV is telling you that you're mean, you gotta change up your ways a little bit, right?
That's classic.
That was classic. Yeah. Anything else that we haven't touched on that you'd like to put out there?
I think that I want to give Pride a plug, just because I think that as someone who's not got a good diet and has always dealt with, like, I don't want to say being heavy, but I'm like 6'2", 245, so I don't need to be more than an eighth of a ton. That ain't a good plan. I've had all kinds of different workout plans in my lifetime. Go to the Club Fitness and get on the treadmill and plan to do some free weights or something like that. And this is one of those few times, the fact that I've been coming for almost 8 years is unbelievable, because there's always somebody waiting for you. Like, so you have to because you can hold yourself responsible, and that sometimes is a little more diet kind of based. But when it comes to working out, if I would go to Club Fitness, get on the treadmill, and then be like, screw it, I'm gonna go have a Frosty and go home. I may never get to the weights, and so it's hard to hold yourself accountable. But in my opinion, most people will screw up their own life before you will screw up somebody else's life. So if your partner's waiting for you, then you're gonna go. There's no quitting before 52 minutes. You're in.
Just try it.
And you're gonna go, and because
I will chase you through the parking lot.
Well, I think everybody I've met doesn't want to let the person down behind them, because if you screw up the train, not only do you get a earful of locks, but you're gonna also you're gonna feel bad, because you, like I said, there's a bit of a performance part to that, where you want to help the person behind you do good. And then the variety, the fact that it changes so often. We do some of the same stuff, and we look forward to some of the things, and all of us puke when we see the evil Roomba on the floor. but so from a practical point of view, I think it's really something that the cult of personality that goes with Pride, that you and Haley, sort of do such a good job, making it an atmosphere that people want to come back. I've had a few friends that come that I brought.
You just brought a doctor last week?
Mm-hmm. So I've had a few friends who came and said, I don't understand how he gets any repeat business, because that was the worst. I couldn't get off the toilet for 3 days after I went the one time. And so it's a little bit of a cult. And I think that when you get part of a family that, has it's interesting, because it's got, I don't know, we got to be 65% women probably.
Yeah, it's definitely more women.
And so it's not a lot of muscle heads, even though we have plenty of people who are pretty jacked, who maybe use it more for cardio than their heavy lifting and stuff. But, it's such a wide variety that, you can be 1 minute you're talking to somebody, I got paired back in the day with somebody who was an old gymnast, and he's maybe 5'4", 140 pounds. He's flying through the monkey bars. I'm like, dude, that was so awesome, your monkey bars. And he's like, man, I can't believe you can pick up that 100-pound ball and carry it over your head. You sort of see your weak spots, and you get to see different people. And I think that kind of camaraderie, where you have a place to go, that because we're coming up on second anniversary of moving to Thunderdome.
It's just a few more days, yeah.
And so
2 years. Can you believe that, Ross? We've been here I would say if somebody else, a year.
Yeah. And so I think that's one of those things.
Yeah, that's 2.
2 years.
Yeah. It's just a rare thing to find, and I know I won't dwell on it, because I know it'll make you uncomfortable.
Oh, you won't?
What? No. Yeah, I won't dwell. That was good. That was like my wife almost there. But the work that you do for the community and the way that you make this run is just awesome. And so, like I said, I won't talk about that too much, because Thanks. I know you're uncomfortable. But wow, what a great job, and the balls to branch out from Thunderdome 1 to here. I know that was a big commitment, and so look at the difference it's made.
Thank you. I appreciate
that is a great rundown of it. It really is.
But what I always say about this place is we have such great people that come here. You know what I'm saying? Yourself, and how many friends have you made here?
Oh, I don't
you know
even
what I'm
know.
saying?
Lots.
And the thing is when you make those friends here, then you have more the more friends you make here, which you make, everybody makes a lot. The more accountability you have. You know, if you're not here, it's like you're getting a text, hey, where are you at? You know,
Right.
and so that's the great part. You know, we started out with great people and did it in my yard, and that culture has just always continued, and that's what's amazing about it.
Oh, I agree.
I was actually said this. It's funny you say that. I said that last because I've been seeing some memory things pop up about the 2 years, and last night I was just kind of reflecting a lot, and I said it to someone last night. I said, "Look, it's just I'm always amazed at the spectrum of people that are here. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, you got like a chief of police, and you got like a guy who looks like he's probably been arrested like multiple times. You know what I'm saying?
By the chief of police.
What's that? By the chief of police. You know, it's just like every end of the spectrum, physically, demographically, everything. You see them here. You know,
We have
skin color and sizes and just everything.
Yeah, we have our AARP group of over 50s that go, and then you got the blonde ponytail posse.
I call them the Instagram posse.
Yeah. Because I bought some yellow Hokas that matched up with a couple of them, and so they give me a hard time about having the 20-something girl shoes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. Well, that was fun, Ross. That was a lot of fun. That was a fun ride, right?
I've now officially met the most popular guy in the Riverbend area.
I don't know about
mathematically by his son's numbers.
His son did those numbers, and you and I couldn't even tell how many hours were in a week.
That was really interesting conversation.
Oh,
seriously.
no, I'm happy to be here.
So fun. Oh, before last thing I want to talk about is you talked about writing a couple books.
Yep. So I'm trying. I mean, it's a process. So during the pandemic, because one of the things that happens is when people come for an exam, they'll get a story or one story or this, that, or the other thing. Because a lot of people have probably heard some of those stories before. So they're always like, man, you need to write a book. And so the two books that I would like to put together that are just short story books. One's called King of the Nerds to Quarterback, sort of the youth story.
It's a great title.
And then the other one is The Other Side of the Speculum, from being on this side of all the stuff, which is more of your like GYN stories. So those are the two, and I started writing them down, but who knows how you only have so much time, and so those are kind of, if they ever happen, that'll be impressive. That might be a retirement job by the time that comes up. But
if that happens, you have to promise to come back on our show. Not forget about us. Yeah. Don't forget about us.
No. I will have probably had more injuries here by then. So as I get older.
Ross, let me tell you, and we don't get a lot of injuries at Pride, which is awesome. But one of the worst injuries we ever had, Ross, was Dr. T here. And it was of his own making.
Oh yeah.
So at the old Thunderdome, we used to do one of the stations was long sprints, and you'd sprint the length of the place on the turf, and you'd run down, you'd touch a wall, touch the wall,
That's important,
and then run back to touch the other wall. Well, Dr. T would run down and run up the wall. You're trying to touch. So what the ceiling, touch as high as you could up on the wall.
Well, there were those motivational lines on the one line of the wall, and so there was a couple younger guys. There was one with red hair, I remember, who would run in kind of Bo Jackson, where he'd put his foot on the wall and just jump up.
I think that was Matty Mike, I think.
And then he would go back. Well, I was standing there, and it was before Frankie, Don, and Haley were married, when they were sort of still dating, and Don was often my partner. And so it was one time when there were 4 long run stations. And so we came to the long run station, and I said, you know what? I could dunk a basketball in mid school. I bet I can touch the top line on that wall. And he's like, that'd be cool. So I ran down there, jumped up, put my foot on the wall, touched the top line, came back, and he was like, that was awesome, but nobody was watching. So when we came around for our second cycle,
he's got to get somebody to watch this.
So when we come around for the second cycle, I go, hey, Haley, Todd, watch this. I'm going to touch the top line. Run. And as I went to put my left foot on the wall, my Achilles blew out, and I crashed into the wall like a rhinoceros.
Like a rhinoceros.
I was worried I had a compound fracture.
Like the Kool-Aid man.
Oh, it had such a loud noise. I was worried I had had a compound fracture. So I was because I hit the wall hard, head, body, because you were expecting your foot to stop you, and I just crashed. So I was holding my a leg, and I was looking for blood, because I was this is gonna be a compound fracture. There's gonna be blood everywhere. And there was no blood, so I walk. It was on one of the last stations, and so I kind of limped over to a bench press bench, and I put my foot up, and it went, nee. And I'm like, oh, it ain't supposed to do that. So it was December 21st, I think, and it was a Tuesday. So on the way home, I called Dr. Sturton, orthopedic surgeon. I go, dude, I think I may have just torn my Achilles. He goes, is it purple? No. Is it bleeding? No. Get an MRI tomorrow. I'm like, okay. So I go home and I'm like trying to sleep with this floppy foot. So I didn't. I went to work the next day on crutches. I just went because I had morning patients. So I saw people on crutches with my foot flopping around. Went and got the MRI. And as I'm walking out of the MRI, I'm crutching across it's like I said, December 22nd. Dr. Omatola, the other orthopedic surgeon locally, calls me up and says, hey, dude, you want to do it today? I go, do what? He goes, fix your Achilles. I go, I have to have surgery? He's like, yeah, you're not some 90-year-old man who lives in Canada. We got to fix that sucker. He goes, did you have breakfast? I'm like, yeah. He goes, okay, we'll do it tomorrow. I'm like, I never was in an office. No, nothing. This guy's calling me. I'm walking. And so the next day, that's the only surgery I've ever had. And so that was the 23rd of December. I had like my mother and my wife's aunt and people flying in for Christmas and stuff. And so I'm having surgery in the morning.
You want to touch that line.
So he was doing, he ended up doing, he would do surgeries when you had one of those little scooter things.
Well, I had the scooter. The picture I sent you was the one on the fake peg leg, because after you have your surgery, technically you're not supposed to walk or stand for 3 months. I only missed a day and a half of work. I was on a scooter, hopping around with my leg on the scooter, and then after I was the one that had, since I was the chairman of the department, I had to decide when I was ready to come back. And so after I think 2 weeks, I had this peg leg where I would it looked like a pirate leg. And so I would scooter to the room, put on the peg leg, limp in, catch the baby, limp out, back on the scooter. I caught 36 babies on the peg leg. And the nurses bought a 50-pack of eye patches, and they gave them out to all the babies because they were my pirate babies. So now I have pictures in my office of 6-year-olds wearing eye patches.
That's, what, and kind of going back to that, talking about, the 100 and some hours you did, and stress and things like that. That's why you didn't miss work,
So
yeah,
it is what it is.
Awesome. Running up the wall.
Yep. So every time I'm running now, Haley will say, "Don't jump up the wall."
So last thing. So at Circuit, this is probably been 2 weeks ago. He does the tallest box at Pride. And he was doing it and getting up there fine, but it's a struggle. It's not like when you're in high school or college, just bang, bang, bang. It's all the effort. So finally up there, I flipped it down to the third box. I go, hate to do this to you, man, but you're down to the third. You're going to the second tallest box now. And he's like, oh, try the five. I go, listen, the risk to reward isn't worth it. Remember the scooter days? We don't want those back. All right.
That's right.
We all know you can do it. It's time to suck it up a little bit and just go to the lower. So,
oh yeah,
I think you've been doing the lower box since then.
Yeah,
right?
Just been doing box 3.
One of your nurses thanked me for that.
Oh yeah, because she can't watch when I do the top box. Yeah, she can't watch. She's like, you're so expensive if you get injured, because we had one. You remember when Hurst, Tara, tore up her shin on the box jump? Mm-hmm. Well, that was the classic because it occurred at the end of the session. And so so she has this big slash that's going to need stitches on her shin. And she was like, man, I'm in between insurances. And I go, you want me to sew it up? And she goes, you can do that? I go, well, it's going to hurt. And she goes, is it going to hurt more than if I go to urgent care and spend $2,000? I go, no, it's going to hurt the same. She goes, what are we even talking about then? So we went straight from Circuit to my office. In our Pride wear, we actually played the Dropkick Murphys song, and I sewed up her shin. And so she says, if you make my shin look like a vagina, I'm going to be pissed. And so she still shows it off, because there's a lot of people who've had box jump injuries, and hers looks the best, I think, out of all. She's always showing off her because it looked like a candy cane when it was busted up. So.
That's awesome. Well, Dr. T, we super appreciate you coming in
to the
here.
candy shop.
Take you to the candy shop.
Awesome segue.
Thanks again. This has been the Eat, Slay, Live podcast.
It's my fucking line,
I
but
know.
you can have it.
We are the Loxecutioners.
Slay on, brother.
Slay on, brother.